that I don't want to be, and I know I had another another lobbyist reach out to me, and I'm going to turn to Charles on, and you guys are attorneys on tort claims and so forth, and what's liable, what's not liable, but I just worry for us in this situation.
So Charles, could you help us here?
Yeah, I just wanted to point out that the exceptions for reporting, if you look on page 2 of the bill, it's, you know, an exception for reporting a violation of state or federal law, municipal resolution ordinance, and it's to any person, agency, organization. So, you know, kind of a broad exception there. And as well, you look at number 4 there, paragraph 4 in line 8 or line 9. It's again to any person, agency, or organization for disclosure of malfeasance or other misappropriation of monies. And then the first exception, which is at the bottom of page 1, it's you know, matters relating to the public health, safety, and welfare, either specifically or generally. So we're striking member of the legislature, but it leaves auditing agency. And if you look at the, you know, definition of auditing agency, I think potentially that could include the AG, and obviously the AG would be included in any person or agency. It would depend on the context with respect to an auditing agency, I think. So I just wanted to point out those parts of the bill if the committee wants to address those areas or otherwise address the amendment.
Senator Titus.
Mr. Chair, if the committee was interested, I think to achieve what Senator Blue likes without upending some of the intent of this bill would be to, rather than this amendment, add in a paragraph that says no information shared or report provided to a legislator shall create an affirmative duty on the legislature to intervene or take any other action. I would want to play with that a little bit, but if Charles wanted to work on that.
Senator Petty.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I have an amendment that may help to address what the Senator has just mentioned.
Yes, Senator Blue.
Can I withdraw my amendment, have Senator Petty do her amendment, and then turn to Senator Titus to see if the Senator Petty's amendment will achieve all of our issues?
Perfect. And then you had the second, Senator Clifford, you to withdraw your second. So, okay.
Yeah, I'll withdraw for now. Thank you.
All right. So let's go to Senator Petty with your amendment, and then we'll see how this all sorts out. So if you can.
Thank you, Madam Chair. If the amendment could be passed out, it meets what was sent to us by Overland Park, I think, through their testimony.
And we do have in the audience Spencer Duncan with the League of Municipalities and Jay Hall with the County Association, and I asked them to be here to help guide us through this with their expertise and how they've worked with their members on this as well, so we can rely on them as well.
So Charles, I'll let you go ahead and talk about this amendment.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Senator. So this amendment just adds 2 provisions to the bill. You see on page 2, it adds to the section of the bill that pertains to situations where a supervisor or appointing authority can, you know, require that an employee inform the supervisor, appointing authority, or the first change is just line 29 and 30 there, adding that, you know, there's not going to be protection for disclosure of information that the employee knows to be false or that the employee discloses with reckless disregard for the truth or falsity of such information, and then adding, or due to a corrupt motive rather than a good faith concern for wrongful activity. So that's added there. And then the second amendment is, as the committee may recall, there was a discussion about an administrative appeal process, kind of adding something to the bill, sort of similar to what's in current state law with regard to state employees. And that's the paragraph that's added there at the bottom of page 2. So it sets up if in any municipality that creates an administrative process to adjudicate disciplinary actions, then there is that administrative procedure set up, and also language referencing an appeal that may be made.
So before we have a motion on the amendment, Senator Titus, do you believe this addresses the legislative concern before we move on?
I don't. I think this is a separate process. I don't know why they, I mean, the first part is fine but different. The second part, I don't know why they wouldn't have the right to appeal that if there's a disciplinary committee that already exists. I don't see the purpose in putting this in, but I don't think it touches what Senator Blue was trying to deal with either.
So, Senator Petty.
I think that we haven't yet said, I'm offering amendment, I haven't had a second yet, I don't
Okay,
think.
so we have a motion by Senator Petty for the amendment, Senator Clifford seconds. Now we have our discussion,
Okay,
so.
and I just had asked Charles to explain it, but I didn't actually ask for it to be introduced. Yes, I don't know, I mean, Jay is in the audience here. Did you want to refer to him for some comments? And I'll make some comments about the last part.
Thank you for joining us, Jay. So Jay Hall, and you helped prepare this amendment, and it was due to opposition testimony we had from Overland Park trying to address some of their issues. And we can decide if that's what we want to accept as part of this bill also. But thank you for working through this with us, Jay.
Absolutely, and thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. I am Jay Hall, Kansas Association of Counties. To address Senator Titus's question on the administrative process, not every city and county has this type of body in their city or county. I think only a handful of cities, if I understand right, and I think only 2 or 3 counties have this type of process. So this amendment essentially says if they do, then you can take advantage of that administrative process prior to going to district court. If your county or city has that process. Since not every county does, we just wanted to make sure we swept that in. But then we also wanted to include the Kansas Judicial Review Act so that if after they take advantage of that administrative process, if the outcome is not satisfactory to them, they can still appeal to district court. So that's the intent of that second part there, just to clarify.
Senator Titus.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't know why we wouldn't, if it's only 2 or 3 municipalities, I don't know why we would just leave it up to them whether to include this. It seems like they could manage that, and we don't need to dictate how they set up their disciplinary proceedings. I don't see that they're excluded by this act from seeking relief, because if they're alleging they've had wrongful disciplinary action against them, I would assume that's already something that's covered by these bodies, and we don't need to duplicate that in state law.
I'll give way to Spencer here.
So Spencer Duncan, League of
I would
Municipalities.
actually argue we don't, and part of that is actually to protect the whistleblower from us, right? So that if we don't have those processes, or if we don't want to follow those processes, this law says, oh, no, you're going to protect that whistleblower and give them a proper process through the system. So it really is that, just so you know, that's part of the rationale. It also, in those counties, gives them a cheaper way, if you will, instead of having to jump right to court to try that administrative process, which is a lot cheaper for them than jumping right to the court. So that was part of the consideration too, that we heard from some of those folks. So those may be good or not, but that's all been part of the conversation.
Senator Titus.
Thank you. I appreciate the answer. I don't know that it's necessary, but however the committee feels about it,
Okay. So was there the second piece, the good faith concern for wrongful activity is,
Yeah, the good faith, that actually goes to case law. I think that was mentioned in the written testimony from the city of Overland Park, that case law does have that as one of the prongs, that it be done in good faith. And so we're just rolling that into the language here so that it's shown that they also have to follow that, so that essentially we're checking all of the boxes that exist in case law.
Senator Fascadeau.
Thank you, Madam Chair, but how does this help address Senator Blue's concern?
As to whether or not this can be reported to legislators, I don't know that the good faith concern addresses any of that. The Judicial Review Act may address some of that, but I'm not sure that addresses Senator Blue's direct concerns either.
Senator Clifford.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I agree that this doesn't address Senator Blue's concern. I have a recommended solution for that, but I view this amendment favorably.
And I might note that this will be different than the House version, that we can also talk about this in conference. Also, Senator Titus.
have we made a motion on Senator Petty yet? Yes. Would it be appropriate to call for division of the question?
Oh, to separate.
On this,
the
I'd like to
two.
separate out the two pieces of hers for separate votes, if that's
Okay.
appropriate.
I'm fine doing that. Charles, can you help us lead us through that process? So our question would be to separate the amendments into two pieces. And so would the first, if the question could be the first box, or due to corrupt motive rather than good faith concern from wrongful activity, that could be our first division question? Okay. Do we need a motion to do this, Charles? Is it cleaner for the minutes? Okay, so would you like to make a motion, Senator Titus?
I would move that we divide the question and take on the first box, the language, or due to a corrupt motive rather than a good faith concern for wrongful activity, as one question, and the rest of the amendment in a second.
The second question, okay. And I saw a second from Senator Bowser, so now let's have a discussion on that. Senator Petty, okay. And looks like no discussion, so let's vote on this motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no? All right. So the first box, let's deal with this, or due to corruption motive rather than good faith concern for wrongful activity. That would be the first part of the question. Does anyone have any comments on that? Okay, let's vote on that first part. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no? Okay, so now we're dealing with the second piece and discussion on this. Do I see any discussion on second box? Senator Petty.
So, I see this as, and that was mentioned in the testimony from Overland Park, that this just then puts into statute if a municipality, either the city or a county, does have this process in place. I happen to be from one of those. So it just lays out that that's available, or that should be taken before you move forward. So I appreciate the work that's been done to put this in, to craft this, and I don't see that it's in conflict with the rest of the legislation.
Any other discussion? Okay, Senator Clifford. So sorry, I missed you over
And I
there.
agree with Senator Petty. I hate to see things just leap to district court. It ought to be worked out at the lowest level possible, and this is an area for relief. So I would agree with this.
Okay, I don't see any other comments, so let's vote on this piece. So all those in favor of the second question, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, motion passes. Okay, so. Oh, yes, Senator Titus, would you like to be recorded? No. Okay. So now we have, see where I'm at, we have adopted the amendment. Do we have all of our votes that we need on that? Okay, so we're ready for the second idea of the amendment. And Senator Blue, you have a great idea, I agree, and Senator Titus, you said something very well about how we might address the legislative piece. If we could agree to a conceptual amendment, could you repeat those smart words that you said?
So let me share a conceptual idea with Senator Clifford. You said you had something that might address this. Let me share what I've just pieced together, and you tell me if you have something better or different that you want to put out. So it would be something like, regarding information that may be shared with a legislator that is pursuant to this act, nothing in this act shall create liability against a legislator or create a requirement for the legislature to take affirmative action based on such information.
Yes, Senator Clifford.
Nicely worded. I think in more or less lawyer terms, but I still would be in favor of that. I just thought the strikeout on 1 to 2, top of page 2, this is a passive opportunity for a citizen to approach a legislator, such as at Dillon's or at a coffee. That's where we're vulnerable as far as documentation. Down further on the lines 15, 17, or 22, 23, those are active requests for information, request to appear before a legislative committee or an audit agency. So those are active activities of legislators or audit committees that are well documented in my mind. So I think it would satisfy Senator Blue's concern about the HR piece of this, that we wouldn't be liable or we wouldn't have to document passing conversations, but obviously the other two could still stand in my mind, although Senator Titus's wording certainly obviates any of this.
Senator Titus.
Keep the strikeout on 1 to 2, top page 2, and eliminate the strikeout in the other two boxes, 15 and 17, 22 to 23.
Let me see if I can follow Senator Clifford. Would it look like just striking line 1 and 2, members of legislature would suffice? Is it as simple as that?
That's correct. I just sense from Senator Blue she's concerned about documenting these things, and she's right. If you meet somebody at Dillon's, you're not likely to document that they had contact with you, and later on a municipality or a supervisor is going to be accused of harsh treatment, and the defense will be, I talked to my legislator. We won't have any recollection of that. So I'd certainly be willing to strike that, although the protective language of Senator Titus may override the whole thing. The other two paragraphs give legitimacy to, we shall not construe to prohibit somebody from honoring requests to the legislature, audit committees, to keep them from leaving employment in order to go to a requested hearing. To me, those things are legitimate to be still in the bill.
Senator Titus.
I'm good with the chair's discretion here. I think either moves the ball in the right direction, and conference committee can deal with it from there. So
Senator Petty.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I certainly agree with Senator Clifford about lines in the original amendment from Senator Blue, lines 1 and 2 striking. It seems to me, and maybe I'm not reading this correctly, so I guess I'll revert to Charles, but in lines 15 and 17, that is when it talks about an employee, so it seems that that one is more of informing, whereas the lines 22 through 23 are being allowed to leave work. If you haven't informed your employer, then it does set up a problem with being allowed to leave work. So am I reading this incorrectly, Charles, on lines 15 and 17?
Yeah, so that would be a reasonable reading of it. As you mentioned, the first one is, we're not to construe the legislation to, that a supervisor appointing authority can require an employee to inform them that the legislature has requested information. And then the second one is, we're not going to, permit an employee to leave without following applicable rules and regulations. So, unless there's that request. So I guess, one could also infer that as part of 2, the supervisor would have to be informed that there was a request for that exception to apply, right? If the employee is requested to appear, then the employer is supposed to permit them to leave. So there's sort of an inherent idea there that that's communicated, but
So just as a
Senator Penny.
follow-up, so that's my concern. It seems like 15 and 17 might need to stay in order for 22 and 23. I understand that being struck.
I agree. We'd just strike lines.
Oh, you're,
1
oh,
and
so,
2.
okay, you just want it to strike the first box. Okay. Okay, I didn't follow that, so
And
I would
Senator
agree with
Reichman,
striking the
you had a comment? Senator Reichman?
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. It's always fun listening to different lawyers talking about different parts of a bill. And when Senator Titus, when he brought his amendment, it made sense to me. And now I'm getting all confused with the other parts of it. And that not necessarily every time he says something makes sense to me. But I was wondering if you would mind repeating what you said, and if that really would straighten up this whole situation we got without getting all the work.
point of order,
Parts of it. Thank you.
Madam Chair. Not that I'm not interested in what Senator Tice has, but is that separate from this? And I'm wondering if we should vote on this as amendment, as recommended for change, and then deal with Senator Tice, or are they tied together?
Well, I don't think we've had a motion on this amendment again since we withdrew, and I thought we were just in discussion of trying to solve this problem. And so he has a solution over here, but we haven't offered this amendment again, if I'm following. So, okay, so Senator Titus, can you read your words again? And our goal is to remove legislators. We all understand that. And Charles, if your words are right, and then we can keep massaging it in conference committee, but the intent is to remove legislators. So say your smart words again.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Regarding information that may be shared with the legislator that is, I put pursuant to this act, probably covered by this act is better, but regarding information that may be shared with the legislator that is covered by this act, nothing in this act shall create liability against the legislator or create a requirement for a legislator to take affirmative action based on such information.
Does that make sense? Okay, as the chair, it makes excellent sense to me. So if we could entertain a conceptual amendment, read several times with your smart lawyer words, Senator Titus. Charles, do you have that would be able, that you could put into a balloon amendment that we're voting on?
certainly, and especially if Senator Titus would be willing to share what he's written down.
Okay, so if you make, would you like to say that was your motion, what you just read, Senator Titus? And I have
Yes,
it.
that'll be my motion.
And I have a second from Senator Blue. Now more discussion. I feel like this gets to the heart of it, and then we can discuss this in conference as well. So, okay. So if we're finished with conversation, did Senator Lifford?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I'm fine with this language. I think it meets the spirit of what we're trying to accomplish. Thank you.
So many ways that we can say the same thing, isn't it? And so let's vote on this. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. All right, motion carries. Now we're back on the bill. I don't know of any other amendments. Does anyone else have any? Okay, so I would entertain a motion to pass out House Bill 2160 as amended. Senator Blue?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move that we pass out House Bill 2160 favorably as amended.
I have a second. Senator, I think I saw Senator Fasquedo first. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. All right, motion carries. Well, good work, committee. I am always fascinated how we get to the same place with just different words in different places. It's a fascinating process. Yeah. Of course you could. So that's the only thing on the agenda, but before we adjourn, Senator Fasquedo.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to acknowledge a former city councilwoman of Wichita City, LaVonta Williams, has joined us.
Well, thank you for joining us, watching us work through all this process. Sometimes it looks really messy, but when Charles puts it down on paper, it's very easy to understand, so. All right, well, committee, we won't meet Friday or Monday, but we do have an informational hearing on Tuesday. And it is just an informational hearing on one of the bills that was introduced, 124, I believe. Was that the number, Randy, without? I believe that was the number. And Senator Shane had introduced two very late in the session, but I asked him if he would would like to have just a conversation on one of those. And if we have time, we could work bills previously heard, but I'd like to hear from the committee if there's any that you would like to work that we still have in our committee. Was it 124, Randy? Yes, so that's confirmation. 124 is the informational hearing. All right, well, we're adjourned, committee. Thank you.